Hi, everybody. Hello. John Wallach Spiller. I go by she, her pronouns. Thank you again, always, for joining me in my segments here on Leading in the Moment with Geronda. I'm super excited to have you here. My favorite month of all months is coming up very soon, and that is Pride Month. Pride Month is the celebration of the LGBTQ plus community. And this segment is going to talk about how we can take pride and amplify the LGBTQIA plus community. So, for those of you who might be new and are watching this segment, I go over things for how we can be more inclusive, how we can be more psychologically safe as leaders, but also anyone else who is working in the workplace or looking to advocate for others, be an ally, and just be the support system that others really, really need in the world today. So, again, thank you so much. This is Leading in the Moment with Sharonda. And before I get started, if you are joining me live, I would love for you to put live in the chat right now. And if you're wondering what my shirt says, it says Hakuna Matata. Some people last time have asked me, "Oh, what's your shirt say?" You have really cool T-shirts, and you will always see something different, hopefully, as I go forward. So, thank you so much for being here. If you are joining me live, I would love for you to put live in the chat. If you're joining me for the replay, totally cool. I'd love for you to also put replay in the chat so I know that you have watched the segment on replay. Now, before I go into this topic today, taking pride in amplifying the LGBTQIA plus community, which you may have seen it said differently, LGBTQIA 2S plus, different ways, LGBTQ plus. Really, it's just include anybody in this community. And before I get started, I always love to give a question of the day. So I would love for you to think about this question. And awesome. Nice to see you, Angelica. Thank you for joining live. So the question that I have today before we go into the topic is, what is your ultimate concert or festival lineup? So I love this question. Again, I promote these quite a bit. This is the social experience. I did not make these. A good friend of mine, Rakita Franklin, made them. She has a company called The Social Experience, and they're really great questions to just expand your conversations and everyday conversations, especially in the workplace. So I love these questions. To give an answer really quick for me, my ultimate concert or festival lineup, it's maybe people you may not have heard of, and I hope you've heard of these people, but Proxima Parada is one. They are a band in California. It's all also love the Lake Street Dive. I think they're actually going to be coming to Maine, which is where I am, in Portland, Maine, and I'm hoping to get some tickets to see them. Also, the California, and I'm blanking on their name. It's so bad. California Honey Drops. These three bands I just discovered this year, and I am obsessed, like really obsessed. They're such good bands. They have really good, chill, kind of bluesy music, and anything that's jazz related to any trombone shorties. One of my favorite jazz musicians. So those would be my three. You might be saying, who in the world are they? I would advise you to look them up. They're fantastic. So I'd love to see your questions as well in the comments. I think if it was a couple of years ago, I would probably say I'd want to see Michael Bublé, probably um, Imagine Dragons, other bands like that. But my world has changed a little bit. All right, I digress. So I would love to see your answers to this question, your ultimate concert or festival lineup that you would love to see, and I hope you get to see them, or maybe you've seen them already. One more person I will say is Noah Khan. Love Noah Khan. Such good music, and Billie Eilish as well. All right, let's get into our topic today, which is taking pride in amplifying the LGBTQIA plus community. And so, as a queer Black woman myself, this topic is very important to me. It's something that I am very passionate about, and ensuring that there is acceptance and understanding of this community. And to start this off, I want to share my screen for a second because I think it's really important to be able to showcase um, some of these things that I think are important. So, something I want to share right now today, and I'll see if I can get this a little closer here or even a bigger size and zoom in. But while I'm doing that, what I'm showing you today, this is a snapshot year to date of the 2023 anti-LGBTQ plus state legislative activity. And an astounding number I want to share is that over 520 to date anti-LGBTQ bills have been introduced into state legislature. Bills like banning books in libraries that talk about trans or the community, not being able to teach in schools about the community, being able to deny services to LGBTQ plus people. You may have heard cases where there have been LGBTQ plus a couple who was denied services to get their wedding cake. It's really really sad, and these are things that are in play. They're still happening. Something else that I'll show is that over 220 of the bills are targeting transgender and non-binary people. So that's close to maybe a little bit less than half, but that's a significant number of bills. This is saying that we think, or legislators, state legislators believe it is most important to deny any type of opportunity for the LGBTQ plus community because of who they are. There's a lot of myths that out there that will say things like the LGBTQ plus community grooms other people or children especially to be gay. And that is not how it works. And I'm not going to get political here. I'm just sharing these facts to showcase why it is so important to amplify the community just on a regular basis and things that are just impacting us today. There's also a record of 70 anti LGBTQ laws that have been enacted so far this year. So that's 15 laws around gender affirming care being banned across, that's 15 laws for transgender youth that really significantly impacts mental health and just other areas as well. There's misgendering, the laws that are requiring misgendering transgender youth. It's really difficult. And now, as somebody who is not transgender, I can't specifically relate 100% to any transgender people. What I can say, though, is I cannot imagine how challenging it is to make a really impactful, important decision for yourself, to live in your truth and then be denied services and acceptance because of that. That's demoralizing, and we are doing this to youth as well, and youth are being really impacted um, at ages where your brain is starting to fully develop. You are doing things like hitting puberty, having experiences where people really need support from you. There's also laws that are targeting drag performances, two laws that are enacted there, laws that are creating a license to be able to discriminate against people and that against the community. And that's where I gave the example of not being able to get a wedding cake for at a bakery for a same-sex couple, just for who they are, which is really really hard. And then I mentioned this earlier, but laws censoring school curriculums, including books. There's four laws around that. So there's a lot of anti-LGBTQ laws there, and we're leading into Pride Month to celebrate this community. And there's just even more laws that are coming into place. There's things that you can see, bills that were just enacted in this past week. There's 145 anti-LGBTQ bills, and it goes on and on by state with that. So I showcase this to say that I'm not here to get political. I'm not here to say, oh, whatever side you're on, you know, I'm here really just to say this community in particular needs support, not only in their personal lives, but they also need support in the workplace. Because you spend most of your time at work and most of your time at home, and you want to have some type of feeling of acceptance, belonging, safety in both places as much as you can. So, now with that said, just realized my collar is not great and I don't like that. Here we go. With that said, I also want to introduce something that is really important that many of us may not be aware of, and it's a new federal ruling that actually protects LGBTQ folks. And it's a ruling, I think it's been a new ruling in the past, I think 25 years since it's taken place. So before I go into that, again, if you are live, please put live in the chat, just so I know you're here, you're visible. I can say hello. And if you are watching the replay, totally cool. Please put replay in as well. We're talking about amplifying the LGBTQIA plus community with Pride Month coming up in just a couple of days. So very excited about that. Now I'm going to share my screen again because I want to show this new ruling that is really exciting and I think is super important to be able to share. And give me a second because I should have, let's see, I'm just going to share my window. Too many things open. Okay, so I wrote an article about this on LinkedIn, and this new ruling is basically saying that LGBTQ plus employees cannot be misgendered or denied bathrooms at work. And this was at the federal level. So you can go and read this article on LinkedIn. You can find me at Geronda Wallach Spiller if you want to read this article. It's also available as well on an organization's website called 19th News. But what's really important here is that it protects transgender and non binary employees. So it's not that you can't misgender and it's an accident and you do it one time and now you have to face the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission and now you're considered homophobic. That is not at all what is being said here. What's being said here is that this new guidance extends protection. So if you continuously misgender somebody that is transgender or non-binary, and you are intentionally doing this multiple times, they now have protection. And this means you're using the wrong pronouns or the wrong name towards these individuals. And it's also looking at protections for remote workers and pregnant workers. Now, something really important to know is that if you are transgender, there are transgender people that will be pregnant. Transgender males can be pregnant, so it protects anybody that is pregnant. And it's if you are a company with 15 employees or more, it's going to be enforced for this act. So it's having accommodations to be able to support yourself while you're going through this change, things like having parental leave available, family and medical leave available as well, traveling outside of the state even to just obtain medical care for an abortion. And there's more guidance around this now because it's really important to be able to support people in their rights to have these things accessible. So when looking at the laws, it is the more important word here is hostility. So if it's a hostile way, and you're doing it intentionally and on purpose, and you're misgendering people, you're not caring about their pronouns, that is where this can take place. So there's ways that we can start to look at this as companies. So are pronouns encouraged in the workplace? Think about and now not every single person has to use pronouns, but it should be something that is an option for everyone to do. It's like when I have any Zoom calls with any clients or any calls with anybody, I have she, her on my calls. And I actually realize I don't have it on here, and I'm going to put that on here. But also, is there understanding of the meaning and the difference of sexual orientation and gender identity across the workplace? Because those are two very different things. So there's different ways that you can go about doing this as organizations. And you can also look up, which is super important, the metrics that you have available to you about sexual orientation and gender identity. This is not just when somebody applies to for a role. This also can be in your engagement surveys. This can also be incorporated as well in any parts of your organization, whether it's other surveys looking to do when you're building out employee resource groups and you want to know you want to build one that's for LGBTQ plus folks, it's helpful to know what the makeup looks like in your organization. Because if you're an organization of 500 employees and you have three people that are LGBTQ, an ERG will still be helpful. But imagine what it would be like if there was an employee resource group for another group, and there's 200 people in them. So really looking at the makeup of that as well. And expectations that you set in your organization, you should always set them for your vendors and external partnerships too. So if somebody is going to meet with a vendor, and you can ask the question of accessibility in terms of um, gender neutral bathrooms, respecting pronouns. You should be able to do these things across many different segments of your organization. And now there are many ways. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen here for a second. Um, Now there are ways that we can be allies to the community as well. I always say educate yourself. um Many people will say, like, so hard, I don't know, there's so many changes that are happening, I don't know what it means to say they to somebody, and I don't know what it means to call someone they in a sentence, and all these pronouns are coming out, and what do I do with these, and how does somebody become non-binary, aren't they just a woman or just a man? Yeah, there's a lot of changes that happen, but what's most important is you don't have to necessarily agree, but you have to be respectful, and that's what's most important. And you should educate yourself on pronouns, why they are important, why pronouns are used, why it's also significantly important for the transgender non-binary community. Somebody transitioning, pronouns are incredibly important. Even if you're not transitioning, and pronouns are just important in general. And so really educate yourself on sexual orientation and what that looks like, and gender identity and what that looks like, and even gender expression. But think of ways that we can incorporate more data, more equitable opportunities for the community, as we approach the workplace. And so I have a couple of tips, and ways that we can actually start to be allies for this community. And this is not just in the workplace, but this can be across the board. One being educate yourself, which I just mentioned. Um, Also learn about the history of LGBTQ, the issues that happen throughout the day, the issues that we see. One really great organization is called HRCI. I just put them in the comments. And they are a fantastic organization that does a lot of really great research. And it's actually HRC, so apologies. They are the Human Rights Campaign. Put that also in the comments there. So they are the Human Rights Campaign, and they have a lot of research, a lot of resources, a lot of education to help you start your journey in educating yourself on the LGBTQ plus community, and just getting aware of the challenges. You can also attend workshops, you can read books, you can have credible sources. Now, the most important thing here, and the most valuable thing I want to, if there's anything that you take away from this conversation today, the one thing I want you to take away from this is you want to make sure you're getting your information from credible sources. Credible sources, not Susie, your aunt who lives in, another state than you and just doesn't understand LGBTQ and thinks they're all bad, and that's where you get your information from. Go to the credible sources, and even do fact finders, and myth finders. Like, you can even look up myths of the LGBTQ plus community and find out a lot more there. You also want to respect and learn from the perspective of the community. So I think the best thing that anyone's ever done for me ever in my lifetime is when I came out as lesbian, when I was, like, this was like 8 years ago, which feels like a long time, but it really isn't. I had somebody listen to my worries, why it was hard for me, should I do it, who do I do it to, just my experiences I've had and why it was so hard for me. And they asked really respectful, open questions. And they were just asking, like, why is it so hard for you? Or, I think you're great. Like, why do you think other people are going to be upset about it? Just really listening to me was super important. The inclusive language as well, which is number three, that's what talks about the things I just mentioned earlier about pronouns, respecting the pronouns, respecting the names that people prefer to be called. Uh, Now, in the transgender community, the names that they used to have are called dead names. And they're dead names because they don't want that name used any longer. So choosing to use the name that is their name that they have assigned for themselves, it's a really hard process to even go and change your license and your social security number and all of these things just to have your identity be respected. So learn about those as well. Also challenge any or speak up against homophobia, transphobia, biphobia, any jokes or comments or things that are made. Now I know that there's a lot of comedians out there that will talk about the community, and there's a lot of back and forth debate on whether it's appropriate or not appropriate. And they say, "Oh, I'm just kidding. It's part of my jokes. It's part of my job." But think about just how it makes other people feel. I mean, everyone feels differently about it, so I wouldn't say make it a generalized thing. But if somebody's uncomfortable about it, maybe it's something you want to stand up for. And be visible and supportive. There are thousands upon thousands of pride events happening in a couple of days for the month of June. I know that I have at least 12 on my calendar that I'm going to be going to, and that's just the state of Maine alone. So you can imagine if I go to Massachusetts, if I go to New Hampshire, if I go to other states, how many are available. Just be supportive. And I would also say the last thing that I would say, or a couple things I would say, is create a safe space to have conversation. Now, you don't have to try to think about what is the right word or right thing I want to say. We all make mistakes. I'm part of the community and I make mistakes. But it's being able to have that safe space to have a dialogue, to have a community. So in an organization, I think the best thing I've ever been a part of when I was working in organizations was having an employee resource group with people that were of similar identity to me, because I knew it was going to be a good community. We can relate to each other. We can talk through challenges. We can navigate things together as a community. It's such a great way to just promote community and people having a safe space to talk about things where they can talk about what's hard, that things that are going on. We talked about things like legislation that was happening and how nervous we were about this and what is this going to mean for the rest of the community. So having those spaces is super important. Supporting LGBTQ plus businesses and media. The HRC, the Human Rights Campaign that I shared, they're a nonprofit organization. You can donate to them, you can support them in research, you can support them in information. And I would say the last thing is reflect on any bias that you might have towards the community. You may not fully understand the community. You may not fully understand how somebody's lesbian or why somebody is bisexual. There's a lot of stereotypes of being bisexual, especially in transgender and other things. So think about how you feel when you hear certain things. Do you get frustrated? Do you get nervous? Do you get anxious? And sit with those feelings and reflect on why are you having those experiences. So really actively thinking of ways to support. Now, these are things you don't have to do. You don't have to do every single one of these things today. Pick one. Maybe it's you want to educate yourself more and you want to learn more about the history. YouTube is a great resource. Go to your local library, buy some books, go on LinkedIn. There's so many places that you can start. And just even type in LGBTQ history. Now, remember, they have to be credible sources, but that is a good way to start. Or maybe you want to just start practicing using pronouns that you're not familiar with. Maybe you want to start with using they them pronouns in a sentence, or starting to understand and listen more to stories of LGBTQ plus people. Pick one thing and start there. And then when you feel like you've gotten in a good place with it, you can even have discussion and questions of things you're learning with someone that you trust. And if you don't feel like there's anyone that you can talk to, you can. There's so many groups that are so welcoming and supportive that would be more than willing to talk to you about this. I'm one of them. I would love to talk to you about any questions you have or thoughts you have. I'm very transparent. And vulnerable in sharing my experiences, and so I'd be happy to help and support you. So that is what I have for you today. Thank you so much for sticking with me on this topic. Again, there's many ways that we can amplify the voices of LGBTQ. We can really bring spaces to them. We can promote them more in our organizations. We can give more opportunities for promotions and different roles and different types of work in organizations. But we can be allies and we can create those safe spaces for one another. And so this doesn't mean that just because I'm in the community or others are in the community, that we can't also be allies to others. I'm allies to the transgender community, to non-binary folks, to bisexual folks. We all are supportive of one another. To gay men, we're very supportive to one another and try to be allies. So don't be afraid. Go out there, get a little messy, try some things, have some discussions. I really encourage you, if you have not been to a Pride event, please just even try to attend one. It is a really good time, and you will meet fantastic people, and just really work to amplify this community, because with over 500 bills out there that are anti-LGBTQ, trying to limit our resources and limit access to things and just limit our ability to be ourselves, is really hard. So we need more allies, we need more support. Thank you, everybody. I'm going to say happy early Pride Month because I'm pumped about it. It's happening in a couple of days. And I will have the next segment for Leading in the Moment coming up on June 12th. It's 2 o'clock Pacific, 5 o'clock Eastern. I'm likely going to change the time. I feel like this is an iffy time for some people sometimes. So I might do 12:30 in the afternoon, which would be 9:30 for Pacific time. So stay tuned for that. If you have any questions at any time, this is my email, courageously inclusive LDR@gmail.com. I hope you have a fantastic day, and I hope that you attend some Pride events, and maybe I'll see some of you there. So have a great day, everyone. And thank you so much for being here. And also have a fantastic day. And thank you, Angelica, for your kind words. Appreciate you. Bye, everybody.